Guy I went to school with refused to say he knew me because he wanted nothing to do with people he went to school with, but he reported me after I refused to interact with him. My wife and I had a New Year's resolution to do more hands-on volunteer work this year. So me, being in it guy, I found a group that refurbishes computers for students. I thought it was a slam dunk, sounded like an easy thing to do, and it was aligned with what I do for a living. On my first day in orientation, I ran into a guy that I went to school with around 10 years ago. I spent 3 years in school with this guy and I immediately recognized him. The guy is on my LinkedIn as well, so I know him. We did projects together, there were pictures of us at graduation. I 100% know the guy. I went over to say hi and he was sort of evasive about saying anything to me. I was initially confused because I thought we were on good terms. When I said, "Hey man, it's me from school," he said he knew who I was, but apparently, once graduation was done he decided to move on from school and be done with it. He told me he wanted to deal with adults and wanted nothing to do with people he went to school with. This was even though we were now in our 30s, so we weren't exactly students anymore. So that kind of hurt, but whatever, I respected his decision and left him alone. There were a dozen other people there, so I went about with orientation and everything. I didn't see the guy again for the rest of the day. A couple of hours later when we were all done I met a few people who were actually sociable and we decided to go across the street to a pub. I was in a good mood and told them the first round was on me because I had a good day. So we go over to the pub and that guy shows up and sits down at the table. I asked, "What are you doing here? I'm not buying you a drink. You don't know me." Guy called me an a-hole and a bunch of other colorful language and walked away. I explained to the group I was with the situation and they were like, "What the F?" I got an email from the event coordinator yesterday. The guy complained about me, said I'm not a team player. Luckily, the coordinator heard my side of the story and was fine with it, so I'm good. But I have to continue dealing with this guy if I continue going to volunteer. So, what the hell? I like the organization and want to continue with it. A few people have mentioned to me that I should have just bought the guy a drink. But out of principle I won't but a drink for someone who disrespects me. Am I the asshole for telling the guy to leave the table at the pub? Edit. Just for clarification, this was a college friend, not a high school friend. Edit. So I got some more info. I messaged another guy I went to school with who also knows the guy. He told me that they used to hang out a lot until around 4 years ago when out of the blue the guy just stopped talking to him. He sent him a crazy long text message basically saying the same thing that he said to me. I moved on and I don't want to associate with old classmates. Update. So this whole saga has been resolved. I hadn't been to the volunteer session since the whole incident happened and I was mostly over it. I contacted a few other classmates and they basically told me that the guy I had the issue with did the same thing to all of them. The only difference was that I actually ran into the guy in person, so that's what made it super awkward. I emailed the event coordinator earlier today because I was interested in volunteering this weekend and next weekend and I wanted to make sure the guy wasn't already on the schedule. Turns out he was there last weekend and he had an absolute meltdown against one of the other volunteers. I don't have any specifics but apparently, it was bad. They told him to leave the premises and he isn't allowed back. One of my new friends from the bar incident saw it happen and the guy just lost his mind without any provocation. I'll get more details this weekend. So I guess the issue is resolved. I am still extremely confused, but I am just going to move on. Edit. So I called the organizer this morning to see if I could find out what happened. I was afraid they weren't going to tell me because of confidentiality or something, but they told me I would find out no matter what, so they may as well just tell me. Apparently last weekend one of the other volunteers was talking to him and he told them he wasn't interested in talking and the volunteer called him rude. So that didn't sit well with him, and a few minutes after he just started screaming at them. He started yelling, "Am I being effing rude?" over and over until he was told to leave and not come back. I'm leaning on him having some sort of mental issues, but I'm not an expert, so who knows. He probably needs help from someone qualified. All I know is you can't behave that way in public.